Hey, what's up? It's Sangana here, talking about navigating my life in my 30s. So, this channel is dedicated to different discussion topics on how I am gaining more clarity on what I want in career, life, and just basically everything in between. And with my different videos, just want to share my experiences of what I've learned, what I'm currently learning, in hopes that you learn something, I learned something, and there's that knowledge sharing in the process. In today's video, I will be discussing how I transitioned from audit into the tech world, which I am currently in, and basically want to talk through how I was able to do that and the things I learned about how I was able to do that in that process. And so just to start off with the background, just to know where I've come from, I started my career about, let's say, 8 years ago now, basically, 2016. And I started off in the audit world. So straight out of grad school, I started with one of the big four accounting firms, and I was in audits. My specialty, I would say, I was working in private company services, and it was an interesting fit because it wasn't like the public world where I was grinding from January to March, given all of the SEC filings. Both private companies, deadlines were different because there wasn't that same level of regulatory requirements. So it was a very nice way to ease into the auditing world. Either way, I still was busy, but I think it was better than what I'd heard from the people who had to deal with the public filings and audit that way. Whatever the case, private companies was my initial starting point, private companies. And with the private companies, I was able to get a lot of different types of clients. So that was the positive, I would say. In one way, I was going to be in a law firm. Another day, I would be maybe manufacturing. Another day, retail. So I was very much exposed to different industries, which I felt kept me like in audit longer than I could have been, because if I had started off just in the public world doing the grind for one major public company, I don't think it would have lasted as long. Whatever the case, I lasted about 2 years doing private company audit, and then an opportunity came up for me to do some SOX testing, so internal audit. And I did that for about 6 months and quickly learned that was not my life and looked for a new job. From there, I transitioned into going into private industry, and I ended up working for an entertainment company, and I was doing finance. And so people always ask me, how did you transition from audit to finance? It was a senior financial analyst role. And basically my role was very operational. And so what they loved about my audit background was I really understand the process, be able to ask the right questions, and basically apply that into my role as a senior financial analyst. That's what I did. And it was very much, I was information gathering, understanding what was happening within my specific business unit. So it was pretty cool being in that role as a transition from the big four accounting world, getting into private. I must say the work was very manageable, very much a 9 to 5. On the dot, I'll be out. I think there was only a handful of times I worked past like 6 or 7, and it was more because we had to push through the quarter. But it was definitely not a situation where that was the norm in my world. Long story short, in terms of just why I decided to leave that world, was because I was at this entertainment company and people who were there loved where they're at. And there was not much movement in terms of career growth, because for my position, it was just me and then my boss. And I had that in 2 different situations. So I was able to get promoted when I was in this finance world. But even in those situations, I only had a boss. And my bosses in both situations were amazing people, but for my career growth, there really wasn't much outside of just me being here and then going to my boss, because I'm not going to my boss's job and I had no interest in doing that. So at the end of the day, it was very much, I was kind of getting bored and I wanted to just liven it up in a way. I really did my best effort to try and stay in that entertainment company and transition to maybe a different department. But when I tell y'all that it was hard, I did over 30 informational meetings to try and see what could be available. But the whole thing, like I mentioned, what I witnessed is that when people are in these positions in entertainment companies, they love what they're doing, they know what to expect, they're not going to leave what's great for them because they have that nice work-life balance. So the chances of them moving or leaving is slim. And so that was kind of me, a waiting game where I was not trying to just wait and just be complacent with my career. So that had me basically looking and trying to see what else was out there. I had always seen some things on my LinkedIn about just different types of software companies, and something that I saw that caught my eye was this company that I had been following since my first job in public accounting, just to keep an understanding of what else was out there. This company had actually reached out to me when I was at that public company, but at the time they were looking for salespeople and I was not interested in doing sales. So I just kind of let that be, but I followed the company on LinkedIn just to see what the company was about. And through the times of me working in audit and finance, the company was growing a lot. And the time where I was itching for a change, they were hiring big time. So they had so many types of functions that were not sales at this point, and that got me intrigued of like what could be. And so they had some technical positions where you're doing more client implementation work, and then they also had this position that was very customer facing, and it would be looking at customer success. And so when I saw that, I was like, what is customer success? I don't know, but it was very clear that this was very much for the SaaS companies, so software as a service in that tech world. And I had no idea like what that even meant, what this could be, and just very much assumed like customer success, was customer support, and very much not the same thing, because it's definitely relationship building, trying to find opportunities with your customers, just basically thinking about that long-term success with your customer base. So I decided to apply to this position. I did actually do an informational meeting with someone at the company who I was able to connect with, and they kind of gave me insights of like what they do, and bless that person for doing that for me. That's another story. If y'all want to get some information about that, can happily talk about that story and the importance of the whole network and LinkedIn. But anyways, I talked to this person, and when she was telling me about her day-to-day and kind of what the outcome is, and end of the day, it's helping the customer, but being more strategic in how you're doing that. And thinking about my background with audit, finance, I thought, you know what? I think I could be a good fit in this. And so I ended up applying. I had 4 rounds of interviews for this position. It was 2 informational behavioral type of interviews with the hiring managers, and then there was a panel interview, and then the last interview was with the actual VP of the department. So it was definitely a lot of stages to get through, but through that process definitely was able to get an understanding of more what my role would be. And it was a kind of a way for me to also suss out if this made sense for me to do this world, to kind of hop from the private sector into a tech sector and see if that made the most sense. So I ended up getting the offer. I ended up going with taking it, and now I am in the tech world, and I have been here for now 2.5 years. So when I think about my journey and what I was able to get from the different experiences. I think what comes down to it when transitioning to the tech world is knowing whether or not you want to do the more technical type of work, so like software development, product design, which I, now that I know more of, was never going to be interested in. And then there is the non-tech side of the whole tech world. So my job is non-technical, but there's an element of me understanding my accounting and finance background that helps me in my position. There's also sales, which I mentioned was not interested in. There's account management, which is an offshoot of sales, and some marketing as well. But again, for me, the whole customer success definitely caught my attention for two reasons. And those two reasons was more of the transferable skills that I was able to really take from my audit world along with my finance world. The first was the idea of relationship building. And so with my current job, I manage over 90 customers, and it's essential for me to build relationships with these customers to make sure that they're using the product and making sure that we are able to identify ways that they can continue to use the product, as well as future product lines that come in the future. So that's also where the idea of being strategic comes into play, because I have to be able to understand where they're at, where they could be going, and what's going to be the right fit for them, which is really cool to be able to do on a day-to-day. The second thing that I would say has been a transferable skill has been the whole idea of project management. And so with the whole accounting, audit world, finance, I've had to be in positions where I was working on different projects, managing my time, making sure things were getting completed. And that definitely transferred through to my job right now. Like I mentioned, I have over 90 customers, and they also have their own specific projects that they may need at a given time. And so being able to know how to effectively manage what's important, what's not important, how to push things through, bring in the right resources, that's part of my day-to-day. And that's definitely something that I was leveraging from my audit and finance world. So all this to say, transitioning from my audit accounting world to tech, the soft skills that I was able to really hone in on at that time has been how I've been able to leverage that in the tech world right now. And so if you're thinking about the whole tech space and what could be a good fit because you're interested in not the corporate life in a way, but understanding a business in the beginning stages, or even if it's a startup that's been a startup for a couple of years, could be a nice way to understand how you could transfer these skills from the audit and finance world, which are not so technical, but more the soft skills, and bring that into the tech world. There is so much opportunity in this world because it's not as corporate life. Things still need to be built out. So I'm still learning what I can bring value into the organization as a whole, because there is so many things that are still need to be built out process-wise internally, which I think that's going to be my next goal in the future, just a side tangent. But in general, if you're excited by the idea of using your non-technical skills and leveraging that in this whole tech world, there is definitely a place for you in the tech space, and it just depends on what you want to do. If you're thinking about sales, if you're thinking about account management, if you're thinking about customer success, these are definitely ways for y'all to leverage these different skills. But that's what I can say about my experience from moving into the tech space. And it's been a lot I've learned. I still don't know if this is the right fit forever, but I do appreciate what I've been able to gain from my experience. And that's all I can do, is just take what I can learn and still take from it and go to the right direction where I need to go. And that's what I'm planning to do. But that's all I got for now. Love to hear your comments on what you think about the tech space if you're in it. If you're in the accounting world, what's your thoughts? Are you still in that technical space? If you're in finance, love to kind of hear your thoughts there. But again, love to hear anything you have to say about the space. Yeah, leave some comments, like, all that good stuff, and we'll talk to you next time.